in this particular fight, our tape wasn't on correctly, so we had to get taped up, and it's just that kind of extra, uh, again, thing that's just out of left field, those unexpected kind of things that you're not anticipating that can kind of throw you. But basically, I knew going into this fight, I was fresh, I was sharp. Whenever I go into fights, I'm always sort of a bit cagey early on, just try and feel it out. So early on in the fight, he came out, he had this kind of awkward style where he's kind of half MMA, double jab a few times. I completely disengaged from him whenever he came in, rather than kind of trying to sidestep a little bit. And it was just a matter of get your hands on him. So I landed a nice overhand body. What I wanted to do was hit him on the way in. And so there were plenty of opportunities to tag him with a jab or a straight right on the way in. Goal in my first round is always to just kind of stay tight and move, try not to get hit too much, try and find my range, find my distance. I like to invite them onto me to attack because it allows me to kind of pick up their timing and pick up their combinations a little bit. And I usually find that midway to halfway through the first round, I find my distance and timing like I did there. And I was throwing the overhand a lot early on, and then I changed it up and went the jab, and I put him down with the jab. At this moment, I knew that I'd won the fight. I just needed to be tight. Just needed to stay tight. Got that 8 count right at the end of the round. I knew that no matter what, if I lost the next 2 rounds, then I could draw the fight potentially. And so the danger is then that you don't just switch off. But if I just kept doing what I was doing, and didn't open up too much, do anything sort of stupid, then I knew that I was going to win the fight. So coming out to the start of this round, the doctor called him over to have a look at him, and I actually thought they might stop it. It would be nice if they stopped it, but they didn't. So you have to kind of snap back into it quickly. He was very kind of direct in his attack. So for me, it was a lot about hitting and moving sideways. You're landing these flush shots. And I start throwing knees in this second round, especially in the third. I was landing some big knees to the head, and he wasn't going down. And normally, that would put someone down. And so it's kind of like, what do I have to do here, or why isn't he going down? And then every time you try a little bit harder, and you exert that little bit more energy. So it starts taking it out of you, and it is kind of psychologically, it does sap you a little bit. With fighting, you just have, the one thing you cannot do in fights is dwell on what's just happened. You have to move on. Every round, every fight on the night is a fight, and then every round there's fights, and within every round there's little fights and little battles and little skirmishes, and you just have to kind of focus on each little battle as it comes, and you can't dwell on what's just been, because that's when you lose fights, that's when you get knocked out. So now it's like, okay, finish the second round. I know I'm 10-8 in the first round. That was a 10-9 round, so I know there's no way I can lose this fight unless I get knocked out, basically. So I've got 3 minutes, 1 round to just stay tight, just keep doing what I'm doing. He hasn't shown anything in this kind of fight that was unexpected in the second round from the first. I knew he was going to come out and do the same sort of thing. So I felt very comfortable going into this third round. More comfortable than maybe I potentially should have, because he was dangerous. But at the same time, you can't give them too much respect. Midway through the third round, I think, when I realised that he wasn't going to go down and it wasn't going to finish, and I might as well just coast through this fight, prevent any injury, because that's the danger, is that you do something stupid and you get caught into a slugging match like we sort of did there. Although he kind of tagged me, but it didn't hurt because he was off balance. He was just tough, just kept coming forward, just swinging, and you just gotta. Those are the kind of guys that you're more skillful, sharper, you hit harder, you move better, all of that sort of stuff. But they can tag you with a decent shot if you let them. So you just have to be smart. You just have to keep out of their way, hit them on the way in and move, reset, relocate, and go again. The more disciplined you are in your fight camp, the more disciplined you are in the fight. And I don't just mean that from a mental point of view, but also the more disciplined you are, I've found in my training, the fitter I tend to be. There's a saying that fatigue makes cowards out of men, and it's so true. You know, when you're in that third round and you're absolutely gassed out, I don't care who you are, you don't want to be there. You're avoiding things. You're making dumb mistakes, and it takes that fitness, the oxygen to the brain to make the good decisions, and that comes from doing all the right things in your fight camp, being as fit as possible. First fight, there was no celebration because, you know, like I said, at the end of the first round, I knew I'd won. So I knew that I had won the fight. For all intents and purposes, it was done, provided I didn't make any mistakes. My opponent knew as well that I'd won the fight. I think it was pretty clear. So it was kind of like, all right, I've got however long it is now to go back. You know, I'm starting to think, as soon as that bell goes, I'm starting to think, all right, what's next? What do I need to do to be prepared for the next fight? So I'm thinking about, okay, who's my potential next opponent? What do I need to do to cool down? Have I got any injuries or sore spots? I did in that first fight have a few little sore spots, particularly in like my ribs. There were a couple of moments where he was like pummeling, and I was looking for that knee, and I did cop one in my rib. It was okay. It didn't hurt too much during the fight, but after the fight, we got there and we kind of sat down and cooled down and relaxed. And that was when I really started to kind of like the pain sort of started to settle in. So it was about preventing that from getting worse by keeping moving, keeping the rotational movement going, not cooling down too much. It was pretty clinical, I think. The fight was pretty clinical, and then it was job done. I don't like to celebrate too much in those sort of situations because I didn't have a strong emotional feeling in that fight. You know, it was all, it's business. I'm there to do a job. The first fight is, so let me tell you a story. In my career from karate and taekwondo and all the other sports that I've done, my dad and I used to have this joke where he could tell based on the first fight how I went, whether or not I'd win the entire competition, because I would always either start slow and lose my first fight or win my first fight and then go on to win every other fight after that. And it's always how I've been. It's a kind of divergent kind of binary. There's no kind of getting to the final and losing or losing in the quarter. It was either win everything or win nothing. And so for me, it's always that first fight in the 8-man, or if it's a 5-round fight and just one fight, it's that first round, is that getting that kind of nerves out, getting the distance and timing, making sure I'm not starting too slow. Once I knew that I was, in the driving seat for that fight, it was like, okay, one eye on the next fight. Let's go. Let's start thinking about getting the job done there.